At the Dust Dogs' annual charity ride, laughter filled the air, until a little girl with tangled hair and a teddy bear in biker goggles walked up to the road captain and asked, "Where are the helmets for passengers?" No one expected her question to stop the music or change the heart of the club forever. Would you have known what to say to her? The Dust Dogs' annual family open ride had always been a raucous, joyful mess. Engines growling like beasts, kids darting through the crowd with melting ice cream, and music blaring from the weathered jukebox someone always insisted on dragging outside. It was the club's one chance each year to show the town that black leather and ink didn't mean menace. They meant kinship. Patch, the club's road captain, leaned against his Harley near the sign-in table, the sun catching on the faded threads of his patch-covered vest. He was mid-joke, gesturing with a toothpick and a half-grin, when the mood began to shift. People turned. The noise dipped. A small figure had appeared at the edge of the gravel lot, barely moving. She stood stiffly, holding something close to her chest. Couldn't have been older than 9. Scuffed sneakers, torn knee on her jeans, hair a wild tangle that half hid her face. In her arms was a teddy bear worn, much loved, dressed in a miniature leather vest and tiny biker goggles fashioned from bottle caps and elastic. It was a sight. Patch gave a low whistle. "Well, I'll be that there's a real road warrior," he said, trying to cut the tension. A few of the bikers laughed, but the girl didn't even blink. She walked forward, quiet and sure, and stopped right in front of him. The music didn't stop, but somehow it faded. She tugged at the edge of his vest. "Excuse me," she said. Patch lowered himself to her level, leather creaking. "Hey there, sugar. You lost." She shook her head. "No, sir. I just—" Her eyes flicked toward the lineup of helmets on the folding table. "Do you have any for passengers?" One of the guys chuckled. "Passengers? We don't usually outfit teddy bears." But she didn't laugh. She lifted the bear a little, gently, as if it were fragile. "His name's Bearson. He belonged to my brother." A pause. "He made the vest and goggles." Patch blinked. Something in her voice, steady but delicate, cut through the sarcasm like a blade. The jokes died. "What's your name?" he asked, softer now. "Lena," she said. "My brother's name was Mason." She looked down at the bear. "He died last year. He always said he'd give me a ride one day. I figured, maybe today he still could." It hit everyone at once, the kind of silence that doesn't empty a space but fills it. Juliet, who ran the event year after year, paused mid-checklist. She looked over, heart already in her throat. Patch motioned to the bench near his bike. "Come sit. Tell me about Mason." "He was 14, she said, settling beside him. "Obsessed with bikes. Always drawing ones with flames down the sides. He told me I'd get the first ride when he got his." Her voice trembled. "He made Bearson these goggles so he could ride too." Juliet knelt beside them, her eyes rimmed in red. "You still have his drawings?" Lena nodded. "Mom keeps them in a drawer. She doesn't like to look anymore." Juliet looked at Patch. His nod was slow. Around them, the bikers stood awkwardly. Big people with nowhere to put their hands or their hearts. Then Trigger stepped forward. Oldest of the crew, silver hair braided down his back, shoulders like an old oak tree. He lowered himself carefully beside Lena. "Miss Lena," he said gently, "I reckon your brother would want Bearson to have a proper helmet. Wouldn't you agree?" Her eyes lit up a bit. "A real one. As real as they come," he smiled. "Let's fix that." Juliet stood, clapped once. "All right, Dust Dogs, you heard the man. Let's get to work." And like that, the energy shifted. Someone ran to the trailer for spare parts. Another grabbed a roll of reflective tape. Roach, the club's mechanic, rummaged through a toolbox for screws tiny enough for a bear. Lena sat wide-eyed as these grizzled bikers crouched and fussed like leather-clad elves. 10 minutes later, it was done. A miniature helmet, cut from a discarded half-shell, padded with old glove lining. Juliet painted a single white stripe down the center and added Mason's Ride on the back in silver ink. Trigger placed it gently on Bearson's head, and the crowd hooped. Lena giggled, her first laugh all day. Patch crouched again. Now every rider with a helmet needs a ride. What do you say? Shall we find Bearson a seat? Trigger patted his trike's front bench. Room for two. One human, one fuzzy. Lena climbed up, hands trembling, still clutching Bearson. Juliet fastened the helmet strap beneath the toy's chin and gave Lena a nod. You ready? Ready, she whispered. Trigger fired up the engine. The roar filled the lot, but this time, no one shouted over it. They just watched as the trike eased forward, sunlight catching on Bearson's makeshift goggles, Lena's hair lifting with the wind. Patch crossed his arms, swallowing hard. Mason got his ride today, huh? Juliet stood beside him, her voice barely above the wind. And so did she. As the trike disappeared around the bend, the silence that lingered wasn't heavy. It was reverent. The Dust Dogs had always ridden for charity, for pride, for brotherhood. But that afternoon, they rode for something else entirely. A memory held together by stitches, goggles, and a promise too important to leave behind. And though none of them could say it aloud yet, the truth was clear. This was no ordinary ride. It was the beginning of something that might just outlive them all. The Dust Dogs clubhouse still held the ghost of yesterday, barbecue smoke clinging to the air, a faint tang of oil lingering on the wind. Soda cups lay overturned in the grass, balloon strings tangled in the fence, but no one seemed eager to tidy up. The usual post-event chatter had faded. It was as if Lena's soft voice still hovered in the space between the bikes, leaving something behind that refused to settle. Juliet showed up early, juggling a tray of coffees. She stopped just inside the doorway when she saw Trigger already at the long table, head bowed over Bearson's helmet. He worked with care, polishing the tiny thing with the kind of focus most men reserved for chrome or memorial plaques. "You've been at that since dawn?" she asked. Trigger didn't glance up. "It ain't every day you make something that don't just shine, but means something." He set the helmet down like it was glass. "That girl reminded me why I ever started riding in the first place." Juliet nodded, quietly handing him a cup. Patch called, said to make sure we get that video to Lena's mom. Wants her to know it wasn't just a nice gesture. It mattered. Trigger gave a quiet grunt. She'll feel it. That smile of hers felt like it cracked the sky. Outside, engines began to roll in, low and familiar. Patch arrived with Roach and Big Jake, sunlight bouncing off the chrome of their Harleys. Roach hopped off, camera swinging from his neck. "You're not gonna believe this," he said, breathless. "That little clip I posted? The one with Lena? It's blowing up. 10,000 views overnight. People are commenting like crazy." Juliet frowned. "You're kidding." "Nope," Roach said. "Folks from all over. Parents. Riders. One guy said he lost his daughter in a crash last year. Said that ride gave him a piece of her back." Patch scratched at his beard, his usual steel softening. "Strange, ain't it? What sticks with people? That girl. She didn't come for attention. Just wanted her brother remembered." Big Jake, usually a man of few words, set his cup down slowly. "When my boy passed," he said, voice rough, "I couldn't even look at my bike for months. Thought it was wrong to ride when he couldn't. But yesterday, that little one on the trike, felt like the road was speaking again." No one said much after that. Some truths don't need company. Juliet broke the silence. "Then maybe we follow that voice. Keep it going." Later that day, Patch called the club together. No stage, no music this time. Just them, leather-clad and road-worn, gathered in the sun-washed lot. Bearson's tiny helmet sat perched on Patch's bike, catching the light like something sacred. "You all saw what happened yesterday," he began. We've done rides for causes, fundraisers, memorials. But what that little girl gave us wasn't charity. It was a reminder. He paused, eyes scanning the group. Her brother never made it to the road. But because of her and because of us, he did. And maybe he's not the only one. Maybe there are more dreams like that. Kids waiting. Stories half finished. Trigger stepped forward, voice low and steady. Then let's finish him. One ride at a time. Patch gave a nod. We'll plan something bigger. Not just for Mason. For all the ones who didn't get their first ride. Roach lifted his camera. And we'll show the world, not for the clicks. Just so they remember what this club's heart really looks like. That evening, Juliet drove out to find Lena. She wasn't alone. Patch came too, and a couple others. They pulled up to a weathered duplex on the edge of town. A rusted tricycle leaned against the porch. Before they could knock, the door opened. Lena stood there, still hugging Bearson, now proudly wearing his helmet. Juliet knelt down. Hey there, Road Queen. We came to see how you and Bearson are holding up. Lena nodded, a quiet smile breaking through. We're okay. Mommy cried when she saw the video, but she said Mason would have loved it. Behind her stood a woman in a faded apron, eyes tired, arms crossed. You're the bikers? Her voice held a note of caution. Patch removed his sunglasses. Yes, ma'am. Your daughter reminded us what it means to ride with intention. The woman hesitated. I didn't mean for her to cause a stir. Her voice trailed off. Juliet stepped in gently. She didn't stir up trouble. She stirred up something we'd forgotten we had. The woman looked at the helmet in Juliet's hands, then at Lena. Her voice softened. He was all about bikes. Birthdays, Christmas didn't matter, engines, parts, drawings everywhere. When he died, I threw most of it out. Couldn't bear the sound of motors anymore. Patch nodded. I get it, but she's carrying the good part of him. The part you didn't throw away. The woman's defenses dropped just enough. She knelt beside Lena, brushing a lock of hair from her face. You did something real today, she whispered. Lena clutched her tighter. I told you Mason got his ride. That night, back at the clubhouse, they gathered again, around a crackling fire pit this time. Trigger placed Bearson's helmet gently on the bench beside him. We'll keep it safe, he said, almost to himself. Roach scrolled through his phone. Texas, Michigan, Ohio, people writing in from everywhere. Stories about their kids, drawings, thank yous, all saying the same thing. You remembered us. Juliet blinked back the lump in her throat. It's not just a story anymore. It's a movement. Patch raised his can, letting the firelight dance across his knuckles. To Mason, the club echoed, voices low. To Mason, the flames cast flickering shadows on old denim, cracked boots, and eyes that had watched too many sunsets from behind handlebars. And somewhere far off, a lone motorcycle hummed down the highway, faint, steady, and strangely familiar. To the dust dogs, it didn't sound like noise. It sounded like memory, and the promise of more to come. By the following weekend, the Dust Dogs were no longer just a motorcycle club. They had become something else entirely. What began as a quiet, heartfelt moment between a girl, her bear, and a handful of bikers had swept across the internet like a brush fire. Roach's short video, barely 2 minutes long, had gone everywhere. There was something in Lena's wind-whipped grin and the glint of that tiny bear helmet that clutched people by the heart. When Juliet stepped into the clubhouse that morning, she wasn't greeted by the usual thrum of engines. Instead, it was the persistent buzz of phones. Big Jake sat at the bar, scrolling through messages with his glasses sliding down his nose. Patch was mid-conversation with a local news station, his voice on speaker echoing off the walls. Trigger was near the door, gently arranging a glass display case. The new home for Bearson's helmet. You've got to be kidding me, Roach said, holding up his phone like it owed him something. 3 million views. were trending under #RideForMason. Some teacher in Ohio's got her whole class writing letters to Lena. Patch exhaled and rubbed his temples. 3 million people. Just hope they're seeing what mattered, not just clicking through the story. They see it, Juliet replied. You can't manufacture something that honest. Out front, a delivery van pulled in and parked awkwardly by the curb. The driver began unloading boxes, packages, letters, bundles of drawings, each one addressed to the Dust Dogs. Each one carried the same message, for the riders who never got to ride. Trigger opened a small box with surprising care. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, was a worn baseball glove. From a father, he murmured. Said his kid never made the team. Asked us to take this on the next ride. The room quieted like someone had turned down the world. Juliet cleared her throat. Then let's do it. Let's ride again. But this time, it's for all of them. Patch nodded slowly. A ride that carries more than just our patches. Big Jake stood, his height swallowing the space around him. Been thinkin'. We've all lost someone, sons, brothers, friends. But that girl, she gave all those losses a face. What if we turned this into something permanent? A ride in her brother's name. Not to mourn, but to remember. For dreams that didn't make it out the gate. Patch met Juliet's eyes, and something unspoken passed between them. He was already on board. Mason's ride, he said. Every bike rides with a story, a name, a piece of something that mattered. Roach was already reaching for his camera. We livestream the whole thing. Families can send in names, tokens, anything they want us to carry. The road doesn't belong to us anymore. It belongs to them, too. Trigger gave a quiet chuckle. Truth is, it always did. A few days later, the lot outside the clubhouse bloomed into something no one had quite expected. Volunteers rolled in with folding tables, coolers, banners, and handmade signs. Juliet managed sign-ups with the help of 2 local teens who had seen the viral video and insisted on pitching in. Roach was buzzing around like a hornet, rigging up drone cameras and checking his gear twice. And then Lena arrived. She stepped out of the car cradling Bearson, now wearing a new leather vest Juliet had made just for her. Her name was stitched across the front, and on the back, one simple patch, Passenger of Dreams. Bearson's helmet was still snug on his head, but now the chin strap bore a tiny silver star, a gift from Trigger. Her mother walked up slowly. I don't know if this is too much, she said to Patch, eyes scanning the crowd. She's still trying to understand all of it. Patch shook his head. So are we. When Lena saw the new glass case beside the clubhouse entrance, she froze. Inside it, Bearson's helmet rested on a small velvet stand. Etched on the glass were the words, for the riders who never got to ride, Dust Dogs MC. She looked up at Juliet, hands trembling. That's for Mason, isn't it? Juliet knelt beside her. For Mason, and every other dream the world tried to forget. Trigger rolled up slowly on his trike, engine rumbling low. Seats ready, partner, he called, offering her a wink. Lena climbed aboard like she'd done it a dozen times before. She settled Bearson between them, adjusting his helmet strap. Photographers circled, phones clicked, but none of it really pierced the moment. When the engine roared, the valley answered with silence, awed, reverent. As the convoy pulled out, people lined the streets. Some waved flags, some held signs. Others just stood quietly with hands over their hearts. Ride for Mason. Carry the dreams. Juliet rode in the middle of the pack, her eyes misting behind her sunglasses. The line of bikes stretched back as far as she could see, chrome glinting under the sun like a slow-moving river. Halfway through the route, they stopped at an overlook, where volunteers had set up a long wooden table draped in white cloth. Mementos from across the country lay carefully arranged. A pair of ballet shoes, a worn backpack, drawings, photographs, trinkets small and sacred. Lena placed a spare pair of Bearson's goggles among them, along with a note written in her careful, looping handwriting. For Mason. We rode. Patch stepped forward, raising his voice above the idle hum of engines. You see this? He asked. This all started with one question, from a little girl who wanted to know where the helmets for passengers were. And we realized we'd left too many people behind. Not anymore. There was no cheer, no chant, just a wave of applause that felt more like a shared breath. On the ride back, Juliet spotted Lena's mother on the roadside, this time not hidden behind caution. She was waving, crying yes but smiling too. When Trigger passed, she mouthed a thank you. He tipped his head in return. The sun dipped low as the convoy returned, the sky glowing gold and rose. The sound of engines, steady and strong, rolled through the valley like a hymn. Back at the clubhouse, Patch carried Bearson's helmet to the glass case and placed it carefully inside. Juliet closed the latch. This isn't the end, she said softly. This is the start of something we didn't even know we needed. The applause that followed wasn't loud. It was something else, something warmer. The kind of sound that doesn't end, just echoes forward. And somewhere past the hills, the road kept going unbroken, unclaimed, wide open. And this time, the dust dogs weren't riding alone. 3 months later, Missouri had shed its summer heat, trading it for a morning that bit gently at the skin. September's first light crept across the ridges, and dew clung to the pavement like a hush before a hymn. The dust dogs gathered quietly, not for spectacle, not for show, but for something they couldn't quite name out loud, something sacred. Patch stood just outside the clubhouse, fingers curled around a mug of black coffee, steam rising like smoke signals. Before him, the lot was filling, rows of bikes aligned like sentinels. They didn't look like machines this time. They looked like witnesses. Juliet wove between them with a clipboard, helping riders secure laminated tags to their bars. Each one held a name. Some were printed in bold ink, others in shaky handwriting. A few included short messages. For Tyler, who dreamed of the coast. For Mom, who taught me to ride. The kind of tributes that don't need punctuation. Roach adjusted his camera rig by the gate. Live streams up, he called. We've got riders tuning in from 20 states. Couple patches came in from Ireland, too. Patch exhaled through his nose. All this from one little girl and one bear with goggles. Juliet offered a small smile. Sometimes one question changes everything. Inside the clubhouse, the glass case had taken on the weight of a shrine. Bearson's helmet sat polished beneath soft light. Around it, new artifacts had joined the display. A silver locket, a folded flag, a keychain shaped like angel wings. The kind of offerings people send when they don't know how else to say thank you. Beneath them, the plaque read as it always had, for the riders who never got to ride. Trigger came in, vest freshly oiled, silver braid tucked beneath his collar. He paused briefly at the case, then turned toward the doorway where Lena stood, small hand clasped around Bearson. Her vest still fit, though barely, and 2 patches now adorned her chest. Passenger of Dreams stitched on one side, and just above it, Honor Rider 001. You ready, kiddo? Trigger asked, voice like gravel smoothed by time. Lena nodded, lifting Bearson. His little helmet was scratched now, dulled by travel and touch. Her mom knelt beside her. Hold on tight, all right? I will, Lena said. Patch approached, unfolding a worn handkerchief in his hands. Your brother's name's on more bikes than we can count, he told her gently. You two started something bigger than any of us. Lena's mother managed a faint smile. He'd have liked this, probably wouldn't have believed it, but he'd have liked it. Trigger knelt, getting eye level with Lena. Remember what I told you? The wind doesn't carry words, carries memory. You hang on, and it'll carry Mason right along with us. Lena gripped Bearson a little tighter and nodded. Outside, the engines were warming, not loud yet, just a steady, pulsing hum. A low reverence. The sun crept higher, catching on polished chrome and faded patches. Dozens of bikes stood ready behind Trigger's trike. Patch stepped forward and raised a hand. "This is the first official ride for Dreams," he called out. "No sponsors, no banners, just stories, just heart. We ride today not for show, but for all the ones who never got the chance." Engines fired in reply one by one. Trigger gave his trike a gentle rev, and Lena giggled as the vibration passed through the seat. Juliet offered a thumbs up from the second row. Roach filmed the procession from a shoulder rig. Big Jake touched the photo of his son taped to his bars and murmured something that disappeared in the wind. With a nod from Patch, the ride began. They took back roads and open plains, 50 miles of asphalt softened by early light. Along the route, locals stood by with folding chairs, waving flags and holding handmade signs. "Ride safe. Dream big. For Mason. For all of them." At one hilltop, someone had erected a field of small white crosses surrounded by stuffed animals. In the middle, a hand-painted sign read, "We remember." Juliet felt something shift in her chest as they passed. The ride had outgrown them. By midday, they reached the overlook, renamed by unanimous, unspoken consent as Mason's Point. A wooden arch framed the view, draped with photos mailed from across the country. Beneath it, a long table held what they'd carried: the glove, the locket, a paper airplane, and a dozen other dreams made solid. Trigger brought his trike to the front. Lena slid down, Bear Son still clutched to her chest. The riders formed a semicircle behind her, idling engines giving off heat and a low, steady growl. Roach's live stream caught every frame, thousands watching in silence. Patch stepped forward, voice clear but quiet. "People say riders live fast and burn out, but some of us ride slow. Some don't get to ride at all. What matters is this: the road remembers. Every mile, every name." He looked at Lena. "And today, the road remembers Mason." Lena placed Bear Son gently on the table, nestling him between the glove and the locket. "He always said he wanted to see the sky from high up," she whispered. Juliet stood frozen for a moment, heart caught in her throat. Then Trigger stepped up beside Lena, pulling a tiny silver bell from his pocket. "Every new ride deserves one," he said. "You hang this on your bike when you're older, so the road knows you." Lena nodded, face streaked with tears and dust. "Thanks, Mr. Trigger." The ride back into town was quieter. Not solemn, but full. The kind of quiet that knows what it carries. The sun dropped behind them, painting the sky in bruised purples and gold. Outside the clubhouse, families waited, cheering, waving, crying. But it didn't feel like an ending. Juliet returned Bear Son's helmet to the glass case as the others settled around her. Patch stood beside her, his expression unreadable. "You ever think it'd come to this?" he asked. Juliet glanced at the tiny helmet, its reflection glowing in the glass. "No, but I think Mason did." She locked the case. Outside, someone laughed. An engine revved once, then fell quiet again. Trigger lifted a glass toward the darkening sky. "To the riders who never got to ride." And one by one, the voices followed, low, steady, unshaken. "To the riders who never got to ride." Out on the wind, the echo of engines rose and drifted, across back roads and fields, through neighborhoods and hills. Somewhere out there, the road was still waiting. And the dust dogs would keep riding, carrying dreams that couldn't be buried, only carried forward. This story reminds us that some dreams don't die. They just need someone brave enough to carry them forward. If you were part of the dust dogs that day, would you have stopped to listen to Lena? Share your thoughts below, and if this story touched you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to embrace the journey for more powerful stories like this. See you in our next video.